Hello my queen bee bakers, and welcome to this Minnie Mouse concha cake tutorial. So here I have some straws and or dowels. You can use either to attach the ears to the cake, and I do have some edible glue available in my store, and the website is queenbeebakers.com. So first you want to start off with some ivory or tan fondant, whatever you want the base color to be. I chose an in-between ivory and tan. You can use whatever color you'd like, and I rolled it out about 1/8 of an inch thickness. I am using Fantasia fondant, so it's really easy for me to use. It spreads out thin, and it's like the best fondant I've ever worked with. And I'm going to be using a 2.5 inch cutter. Now this is around the size of the cookies as well. I want the fondant to go over the cookie and the edge. And what I'm going to do next is get some edible glue and put it on the cookie. So when you have the edible glue on the cookie, as you see me doing, make sure you use a brush that is safe, because you don't want to have bristles falling into the cookie or onto the edible glue. So use a brush that is has strong bristles. So you're going to apply your fondant on the cookie like so, and then you're going to shape it around the cookie, on the edge, on the top, to make it look like a concha. If you've never seen a concha is a nice puff pastry. Really, it's like one of my favorite desserts, I guess you would say. So you see me right here, I'm just trying to fold the edges around the cookie. Keep in mind, you can get the Perfect Sugar Cookie class on my website, and the details will be in the description box below. So make sure you got both cookies done. Make sure you put them both with edible glue so the fondant sticks to the cookie. So when you got them both done, you want to roll out some pink fondant, and you want to cut about 1/2 inch shorter or smaller than your cookie size or their fondant size. And you're going to get 2 of those because you want it to look like a concha. And don't have to be too thick. Thin is fine. Cut them out, and then you want to leave an imprint of a concha. Like I said, if you haven't seen a conchas are very unique pastry. They're so delicious. I can't stop thinking about them. You're going to cut out, as you see, 1, 2, 3, 4 at an angle. Now you can leave it like that, or get a bigger circle cutter and give it 2 more lines going downward. 1, 2. Now that looks like an imprint of a concha. I'm going to put some edible glue on the fondant, and then I'm going to put the concha imprint. So this would be the sugary part of the concha if you've never had a concha before. And I am just going to smooth out the edges of the pink part, and I'm going to indent it a little more just to make it look a little more authentic. Yeah. Give it more of a space while it's on there, but you don't want to imprint it too much. Just enough that you see the indents in there. Nice and smooth all around the cookie. I kept going over the cookie like that because I wanted to simulate an exact concha. And I think I achieved that. Now I'm just smoothing out the edges of the pink portion. And I'm going to do that with both the cookies. Keep in mind, these are going to be the ears, so the thinner the fondant, the better, because then you don't have a heavy ear to put on top of a cake, and the more fondant, you know, it could be a disaster. So make sure you make these around a day to 2 days in advance. Let them dry. I made these 2 days in advance and they dried pretty well. I was very satisfied. Now I'm making the second one. And same way, all the angles and stripes. And now we've finished with the cookies and putting the edible glue on this straw. I decided to use the straw because I knew my daughter was going to use this as a smash cake. So I put the edible glue on the cookie, on the straw, and then put the straw to the cookie, put some more edible glue on top of the straw, just to make sure that the fondant that I'm going to put in back of the cookie will adhere properly. So now I am cutting out a piece, I'm rolling out a piece of tan fondant, same color as the ear. And I'm going to cut out like rectangles about the same size as the cookies. I just want to make sure there's enough coverage. I would recommend doing this portion of the fondant thicker because you don't want the straw slipping out or the fondant, you know, being too thin and weak. So I highly suggest you use a thicker piece of fondant. I did have to go over this a second time because this layer was too thin. So the thicker the fondant, the better in the back. But like I said, you don't want too much fondant, so as thin as possible in the front, but you want thick in the back. Now you would just let these dry. I made these before I put the concha sugar crystal part on top. If you don't know how to make conchas, I also have a class for that on my website, queenbeebakers.com. So now I am rolling out some fondant for the cake. So it was a half sphere cake, half a ball cake, and it was already buttercream. So all I'm doing is rolling out some more tan-ish ivory fondant. A little goes a long way, especially with Fantasia fondant. Like I said, it's so stretchy. A little goes a long way. Even if I put that piece on the cake, I could just stretch out the rest, even if it was on a cold cake, which is the beauty. I love this fondant. I swear by this fondant, even though I don't get paid to say that. I really swear by this fondant. So I'm rolling it out. And again, whatever works for you. Whatever is your happy medium. So there's the cake. It's a chocolate and marble, actually, chocolate vanilla. So here you see where I'm stretching out the fondant, and that cake had just came out of the freezer. I had it in the freezer for a little bit so I can work fast. And just stretching the bottom portion, working the fondant down. I'm telling you, this fondant is thebomb.com. And this part is pretty easy, especially with sphere cakes. You literally just work your way down. And if your cake is cold, it's going to be easier for you to work with. I would highly suggest working with a cold cake, not a room temperature cake at all, whatsoever. Work with a cold cake or put it in the freezer for 5 to 10 minutes and then put your fondant on there, on your cake. So I just cut the excess and now I'm just, you know, shaping the bottom, making sure, you know, everything's nice and neat. Now I want to create some holes on the top to see where I'm going to have the ears. So what I'm going to do is grab a dowel or a stick, whatever you have, or the straw, I would suggest something with a sharp point so you can get in there layers of cake. I'm still fixing the cake. I had a little OCD when it came to that cake for some reason. So I am trying to find my happy medium because you don't want the ears too close, but you don't want them too far either. That was around 2.5 inches away from each other. So the length of the cookie, bizarre. And this is a 6-inch half sphere cake I'm working with. So I'm literally just putting the dowel in, swiveling it around, and I got that hole. Now, what I want to do next is make sure the straws do fit in the holes of the head that I created to make the Minnie Mouse ears. And because the straws are a little too long, I did have to clip them and make sure they fit. Yep, perfect. As you see, I made another pair of ears. This one is missing the pink sugar crystal concha part that makes it a concha. Alright, so I was just determining if this is how I wanted it to look and if it looked good or not, what I needed to do. So you can do this ahead of time and then pull them out and then, you know, adjust anything that you need to adjust. But I was just playing with it to make sure it looked good. And see, that's what I was talking about, the thin layer of fondant. I had to go over it and, you know, give it a thicker piece of fondant. Good thing I made 2 cookies. And it's okay to mess up. It's all a learning process. And I was also measuring these straws to see how big I needed them and if I needed to cut them again. So it's all about finding your happy medium and what works for you. Just keep that in mind. There's no failures. They're only learning lessons and you learn as you go. So again, I'm still making sure. Again, I had some OCD about the ears being correct because I've seen some Mickey ears and it's just like, no, should have been spaced out. So I was being OCD and I wanted to look like Minnie or Mickey. So that was how I wanted them. I got them perfect. I was super happy with it. And then I take the ears off. And then I try to perfect the bottom again. So now that I had the ears off, as you see, that was the thin layer of fondant. And I have the other cookies. After finishing the cake, I put a thicker layer of fondant. So do a thick layer of fondant. Just save yourself the trouble and do a thick layer of fondant. I'm adding, see, this literally defines the cake. It makes it pop. So after this, I let the cookie set with a thicker layer of fondant. Just trying to perfect the ears, pushing it in, maneuvering the straws, making sure that if I took a picture, the straws weren't going to show in the back, and just tapping it with the scissors so the straw would go in a little more because it wasn't pushing in. I didn't put the dowel far enough or swivel it far enough in there. Alrighty. So that's how it looks from the back. That's how it looks from the front. Now, what I did here was get the limited edition sprinkles from Uni the Cake, and I'll have that in the description box below. And it has a bunch of little concha sprinkles. I know, truly the cutest. So I just got all the concha sprinkles and I put them around the cake. And I thought it gave it a different touch, unique. I just thought, oh, what the hell? Let's do all concha, everything. So I decided to go wild and put concha sprinkles everywhere. I thought it looked cute, especially for a smash cake. Now, the great thing about Fantasia fondant is, like I said, it's so stretchy and pliable that ripping it off is super easy. As you saw, I'll have the link below for my daughter's smash cake session. And also keep in mind that it's sugar paste, it does melt. But as long as you're in front of your child, my daughter, she did not want the cake, she just wanted the cookies because she's teething. But yeah, you can see the video. And right now I just put 2 colors of fondant together, pink and the tan, and I cut out number 1. And then I added some edible glue, or I'm adding some edible glue to the number 1. And I'm going to put it in a pan and smother it in sprinkles. I think this is the best way to do it because you don't get sprinkles everywhere and it stays within the pan and you can put it back on the bottle. And then I am going to apply that in the middle of the head. And there you have your mini concha cake. Hope you enjoyed.